Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Naruto and Sasuke was like Hashirama and Madara. Naruto and Sasuke will be strong. Naruto will have a wood release and he is a Senju. Sasuke will, as you all know, an Uchiha. Now let's start the story. Chapter 18 Inches Pain. You let them go, came the voice of Conan in the empty room. Empty, save for her and the diva path. Pain. The man himself stood by the balcony, staring out at the village with his usual emotionless look on his face. He hummed in confirmation. Why? You have never lost a battle before. This was no loss, a mere tactical withdrawal, Pain said simply. The Kyuubi had barely even started using his full power, and yet he destroyed the Asura path. The Naraka path has 9 broken ribs, and the Preta path has a broken pelvis and 3 shattered vertebrae. I will need to recover and find a new Asura, and come up with a proper strategy. The Kyuubi is stronger than I had calculated, and so I underestimated him. It is that simple. I warned you. The new voice, dark and mocking, made Pain look toward the corner of the room, to see the cloaked Toby stepping into the light, his one-eyed, orange swirl mask still on his face. Toby, was the only greeting Pain gave him. I told you that Senju Naruto was not to be underestimated. Even you, with all your power, isn't without at least a near equal. Lesson learned, Pain stated, returning his gaze to the village. It won't happen again. Obviously, since you don't have an Asura path for him to smash with a rhino again, Toby quipped, which caused a barely noticeable twitch to appear under Pain's left eye. Enemy or not, that was still a pretty damn impressive move, Pain had to admit. Disregarding that, though, Pain noted something in Toba's voice, which made him glance at the masked man again. You admire him. I have respect for him as a warrior, Toby clarified. All my sources tell me that he embodies the best of his ancestors' talents. Come to think of it, Kisame is practically itching for a fight against him. As such, if it were to come to it, even I would be cautious in a battle against him. I will come up with a proper strategy. See that you do. After this, he will surely never leave Uchiha Sasuke's side. Alone, they're bothersome. Together, they could be a great threat. As I said, Pain almost growled, a hint of emotion bleeding into his voice as he turned to give Toby a dangerous stare. It won't happen again. Toby stood there in silence for a while, but then chuckled, shrugging in resignation. Well, I wish you the best of luck, that I do. Remember, though, don't do anything rash. The air around his eye hole started swirling, a small wormhole that sucked the masked man into itself, leaving only his parting words in his wake. I still need you, after all. So, Conan spoke up after a moment of silence, do you have a plan? Senju Naruto's greatest weapon is his Mokuton. He focuses on large-scale destruction to overwhelm his opponent, Pain said, raising a hand to his chin. So we remove his ability to use it. His soft heart won't allow him to use it when faced with the threat of collateral damage. He turned around to look at Conan. He remained emotionless, but Conan had known him long enough to recognize the triumphant look in his eye, an idea taking shape. Especially if it threatens his fellow villagers. Tsunade was giving both Naruto and Ino a harsh glare as the two stood in front of her desk alongside Jiraiya, who was looking a bit exasperated, mostly because Naruto was looking as impudent and defiant as ever. So, Tsunade said, looking over the two Chunin. Why did you leave the village border? And, Naruto, why did you abandon your mission? It was Jiraiya who answered. My student felt a great need to provide me with backup, one that was much needed, I might add. And Yamanaka Ino came along because my mission was originally strictly recon. She had no mission assigned to her at present, so she was a great asset that allowed us to discover the whereabouts of the Akatsuki leader. Ino was looking nervous. She was fidgeting and scraping her sandal against the floor. Naruto noticed this and reached up, placing a hand on her shoulder and giving her a comforting smile, before giving Tsunade a serious look. I'm taking all responsibility for Ino's actions. I'm the one who roped her into going with me. Naruto, no. Ino exclaimed with an alarmed expression on her face as she took a step forward, steeling herself. Hokage-sama, I volunteered to go with him. Naruto even urged me not to. The responsibility is my own. Tsunade sat there, watching them for a long while, her gaze moving from Ino to Naruto, and then settling on Jiraiya. Then, she closed her eyes and sighed. Very well, this incident will be kept out of the public records. For all anyone knows, Yamanaka Ino has been in the village the whole time, and Senju Naruto went with Team 7 in the attempted assassination of Orochimaru, she spoke, reaching up and pinching the bridge of her nose. But I don't want this happening again. Now, Naruto, Ino, you may leave. Jiraiya, stay. The two Chunin nodded to the Hokage, before leaving the office. Once the door was closed, Ino leaned against it and gave a great sigh of relief. That look she gave us, she muttered, clutching at her chest. I thought she was going to give us a harsh punishment for sure, maybe even demote us to genin. You worry too much, Naruto said as he slung an arm around her shoulders and pulled her away. Ba-chan acts tough, but she's really a big softie. She doesn't seem like it. Well, if you piss her off, sure, she'll smack you one, but she understands when things are important to someone. Smack you one? Ino asked cautiously, which made Naruto laugh. Yeah, she broke my jaw once because I made a comment about this and that. I almost died. Sadly, it seemed that Naruto's attempt to reassure Ino was having the opposite effect. She seemed downcast, her gaze fixed firmly on the floor as they walked. Maybe she's just waiting to get me alone so she can do the same. Hey, don't worry. Naruto said happily, pulling her closer. If she wanted to hit you, she would have already done so. Now, how about we go eat some Ichiraku ramen to celebrate a mission accomplished? At least you saw some action. Sasuke had been sounding bitter ever since he returned to Konoha. In any case, Naruto and Sasuke now sat in the sun at Team 7's training ground, their backs against the logs. And what did we get? 4 empty bases filled with spiderwebs. You know, we could have died back there if that pain guy hadn't underestimated us, Naruto remarked, which got him a scoff from Sasuke. We both know you're too stubborn to die. Now, you said you had a new jutsu to practice. HRHM. Actually, I don't think we can practice it just yet, Naruto muttered, reaching into his kunai pouch and taking out a scroll, handing it to Sasuke, who took it and opened it. It's still in development. I was hoping to get your input. This. Sasuke gasped, reading over the formula, his eyes wide in amazement. How the hell did you come up with this? I came up with it in a dream, Naruto told him. I thought it'd be fun to see if it could work. Well, the chakra merge is sound in theory, Sasuke muttered, his gaze still glued on the scroll. I just don't see how it would hold up in practice. If this goes even somewhat wrong. Hence why I wanted your input. This isn't some jutsu we can go into half-cocked. The theory has to be perfect. Sasuke shook his head, still poring over the incredibly complicated technique. Naruto always acted like a blockhead, but it was during times like this that he showed what a genius he was when it came to jutsu. This is insane, even by your standards. Why would I even consider helping you with this? Come on, you know it would be amazing, Naruto said, grinning widely. Sasuke stared for a few moments more, then smirked as he glanced up at Naruto. You were right, we would be damn near unstoppable. Before Naruto could speak, an Anbu blurred into view in front of them. Yura drew the short straw again, it seemed. Yo, Yura Taicho! Naruto exclaimed, raising his hand in greeting. Ba-chan wants to see us. That's right, Naruto-sama, Yura said. Please, grab onto me. Both Naruto and Sasuke mentally debated whether or not to instead race to the Hokage Tower. Eventually, their competitive spirit won out, and Naruto grinned to Yura. Don't worry, we'll get there on our own. With that, the two of them dashed off, leaving the cloaked Anbu captain alone. The Anbu stood up and looked around, then sighed. I swear, make one comment about the Hokage gaining weight, and suddenly I get all the crap assignments. The Hokage Tsunade could be a very vindictive woman. And sending for Naruto and Sasuke proved to be less than pleasant for Tsunade herself, for as she sat behind her desk, sipping a cup of tea and going through a bit of paperwork, she found her newly replaced window smashed as a yellow blur went through it yet again. Tsunade, temporarily forgetting that she was a ninja who should always remain on guard, especially around her grandson, let out an embarrassing yelp, the cup flying from her hand and splashing her face and chest with tea. Thankfully, it wasn't scalding hot anymore, or she would have been very cross indeed. First, Senju Naruto barked triumphantly, after which Sasuke came jumping in. Not fair. You only came first because I stopped to open the damn window. Should've just gone through it like me. Naruto's triumphant grin faded away when a wave of killing intent washed over him, and he turned his head to see Tsunade, drenched in tea, slowly rising from her chair, her wet bangs casting her eyes in shadow. He could see the vein pulsing in her forehead, threatening to explode. Naruto. You damn. In a blur, she was behind him, and her fist smashed into his cheek so unexpectedly that he didn't have time to react, packing the force of damn near 100 mules. The window next to the one he had come through exploded as the blonde was sent flying into the distance. Moron. Sasuke gulped as he stared at the fuming Hokage, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple as he raised his hand to cautiously catch her attention. I want it noted that I stopped to open the window. Only now did Tsunade seem to notice that Sasuke was there as well. She released a sigh, trying to look as dignified as possible. Thankfully, Sasuke wasn't the type to stop and ogle her chest. The now cold tea had made certain parts of her upper body very noticeable. She coughed into her fist. Sasuke, I'll need you to wait outside for Naruto to come back while I dry myself off. Sasuke was quick to comply, leaving her office to wait outside. Tsunade cleared her throat again, then grabbed a paperweight and threw it up at the ceiling. A ceiling panel loosened, and a red-clad figure with white hair fell down. When the dust from his impact with the floor cleared, it was revealed to be Jiraiya. He seemed to know exactly what would happen, because he chuckled nervously. Yes, I have to go see if Naruto survived that, huh? He asked with a gulp, and the grin on Tsunade's face wasn't comforting in the slightest. Yes, the express way. The sound of fist meeting cheek rang through the office, and Jiraiya shot out of her office like a rocket, heading in the same direction that Naruto had flown. Naruto returned 5 minutes later, packing a swollen cheek. Jiraiya was nowhere to be seen, though. Tsunade had changed and once more looked professional, once more clearing her throat to catch the attention of Naruto and Sasuke, who were standing in front of her desk. Now, why I called you here, she muttered, giving them a serious look. I want the unofficial reports. Unofficial? Sasuke asked curiously. What do you mean? As I said, this is unofficial, so there will be no reprimand. I take it Naruto didn't act on his own when he abandoned the Orochimaru assassination. Tsunade asked, giving Sasuke a significant look. It wasn't in Kakashi's report, but I can put 2 and 2 together. I know all of Team 7 was complicit in the desertion. It wasn't desertion per se, though, Naruto quipped, but shut up when Tsunade glared at him. This time, it worked out for the better, but I don't want you kids pulling this kind of shit again, Tsunade growled. I've given you a lot of leeway recently, but I can't have you abandoning your mission. Imagine if Orochimaru had been there. Imagine if he had a large group of soldiers there. The consequences could have been dire. I think you're underestimating Team 7, Naruto said with a scoff. However, he still nodded. Don't worry. So long as you don't send the pervert on another suicide mission, I won't be disobeying orders. I didn't order Jiraiya to, but you agreed to it, Naruto interrupted. I know it's an honor to give your life in the line of duty, but that should be a last resort, not the first choice. Are you telling me how to do my job? Tsunade asked, a dangerous look in her eye. Naruto, however, just nodded. If I hadn't been there, I would have lost my godfather, and you would have lost your oldest friend, he argued, remaining adamant. As it is now, we got information on Akatsuki's leader, and the old pervert survived. I'd consider that a win-win, and I have no regrets. Tsunade opened her mouth to argue, but then sighed. You're not going to budge on this, are you? Nope. And you? Tsunade continued, looking to Sasuke, who sighed. I don't really like disobeying orders, but I'm with him on this one. I have no regrets, and I did it again with impunity. You too. Tsunade muttered, palming her face. She'd been hoping that, unofficially, they'd show at least some regret, yet of course, the dynamic duo were 2 bodies, 1 mind in these matters. And of course, they'd both be impudent little brats. She didn't know why she'd thought an unofficial hearing would yield any better results than the official report. In any case, onto the next agenda, she spoke up, turning serious again. I want to give you all the details we have gathered on the leader of the Akatsuki, Pain. Naruto and Sasuke both perked up as she dug 2 files out of her desk and set them down in front of the 2. Read it, memorize every detail. Odds are, you're going to be fighting him soon. Then I guess we'll have to do our best to finish that jutsu, Naruto said, glancing at Sasuke, who nodded, although he looked reluctant to do so. It'll be a pain to match yours, but I'll give it a shot. Tsunade voiced, blinking. That jutsu. It's a surprise, Naruto said with a grin, picking up the file. Well, if that's everything. Yeah, that's everything, Tsunade said, realizing she wasn't gonna get any answers anytime soon. Also, Naruto. I have withdrawn your clearance to study the Hiraishin in the Forbidden Scroll, Tsunade said, which made Naruto go wide-eyed. Before he could protest, however, she took out a piece of paper and handed it over. You have free reign. Read and study the whole thing with your usual impunity. What? Sasuke barked, snapping his head toward Naruto with a furious glare. But, that means. Aha! Naruto exclaimed, that triumphant grin once more adorning his face. I will be the most awesome of the team. Uchiha Sasuke, constantly number 2. This is not fair in the slightest. Sasuke muttered, watching as Naruto skipped out of the office. Tsunade watched as Sasuke left, waited a few seconds, and then called out, right, you can stop hiding now. Jumping in through the broken window was Jiraiya, who was grinning widely, despite his swollen cheek. Oh ho, you gave him the whole scroll to study, huh? I thought you said, it'll give him a big head if he gets more power, when we discussed it last, he said with a hum, rubbing his chin. Believing in him more than you thought you would, It's not like the brat can get a bigger head than he already does. Tsunade huffed. Besides, given the abilities of Pain, I think he'll need all the help he can get. True, there were some of them that we never managed to figure out the abilities of. Well, he's going to have to hold off reading from that thing. Oh. Tsunade uttered, raising an eyebrow curiously. Have another training trip in mind. Somewhat, Jiraiya said as his grin widened in what looked like excitement. He's already damned close to mastering it naturally, so I'm taking him to Myobokuzen. I'm gonna have the elders teach him senjutsu, sage arts. He had already gotten permission, after all. The Toad Temple was a huge room, the walls and floor a bleak brownish gray. In the back of the room sat a huge, wrinkled old toad, soaking in an oil bath. His eyes were barely open, and he wore a bead necklace with the kanji for oil on it. He really looked like he was lounging lazily, appearing uncaring and completely relaxed. On either side of him sat smaller toads, about the size of Gamakichi when he was young. Both were wearing cloaks that covered their bodies from their neck down. Strangely enough, the male toad actually had eyebrows, long and bushy ones colored gray with age. The female toad's head was shaped as though she had a full set of hair with hair rollers in, yet if one looked closely they would see that it was just her head that was shaped very strangely. In front of the huge toad, Jiraiya was kneeling, his head bowed in respect. Oh, Jiraiya-chan, the large toad spoke in an ancient voice, a small smile appearing on his face. It's been a very long time since you last visited us. So, he asked, turning to look down at the male toad. When is Jiraiya-chan coming? He's right here, elder, the toad with the eyebrows muttered, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. Right. Welcome, Jiraiya-chan, the elder said, smiling down at the toad sage. So, what brings you here? Elder Sama, Jiraiya said, bowing his head lower. I come to you today to ask your permission to bring my student here to learn senjutsu. A simple request, to be sure, the elder said as he nodded his head. However, Jiraiya-chan is already deep in training, and we cannot possibly take on another. Jiraiya-chan already finished his training, ya senile old fart, the female toad barked at the elder, who perked up in surprise, staring down at Jiraiya. Said toad sage was gritting his teeth. He already knew the elder toad was senile and tended to forget details and such, yet it always frustrated him whenever he met the toad. Even Gamabunta was easier to deal with than this guy. So he has. That was quick, the elder said in amazement. Now, Jiraiya-chan, you had a request. Why yes, Elder Sama. Jiraiya muttered. The things he went through for Naruto's sake. I wish to bring my apprentice here. Oh, the little Senju child. Amazingly, the elder seemed to have experienced a brief moment of clarity, nodding slowly to himself. Of course, if anyone can completely master the volatile nature chakra, it would certainly be him. Very well, I approve. Bring him to me as soon as possible. Thank you, Elder Sama. Jiraiya exclaimed, bowing deeply enough that his forehead touched the floor. You're very welcome. Now, when is Jiraiya-chan coming? Jiraiya sighed. I hope the brat appreciates what I went through for him. Jiraiya muttered, his mind returning to the present. The elder was never fun to deal with, that was for sure. Both Naruto and Sasuke were panting heavily, laying in the dirt at their training ground with sweat pouring down their faces. They both looked like they had been through a war. In fact, Sasuke had never seen Naruto this tired, except when he fought Kakuzu. Damn. This really is difficult. Sasuke muttered between gasps. I didn't think. He cut himself off, feeling the bile rise in his throat and fearing he might vomit from exhaustion. You're not freaking sinking. Naruto barked, although it lacked his usual ferocity. He was too damn tired to muster enough energy to properly bark at Sasuke. I told you, we have to match our chakra. Look, this goes both ways. You want to get some, you have to give some, you know. Sasuke barked back. We're supposed to sync, not have one of us adapt to the other. Both ninja looked up at the third voice, one long since familiar to them. Indeed, Hinata had arrived at the training ground. I made lunch for you, if you want I eat. Hinata flinched as both ninja lunged at her, each grabbing one of the 3 boxed lunches she was carrying. She recovered quickly, however, when she saw them wolfing down the food. Naruto and Sasuke both paused at the same time, looked up and tried to see how much the other had eaten. They locked furious gazes for a moment, and then went right back to eating. Hinata was used to this by now, so she calmly sat down and opened her own lunch, calmly and methodically taking her chopsticks and eating it, in no rush at all. Biwa. Naruto gasped, the first one to finish eating, as he collapsed onto his back and grinned up at Hinata, clapping his hands together. Thanks for the meal, Hinata. Delicious as always. Sasuke grunted, finishing his own lunch and turning to Hinata. You did something different with the Nikuman, didn't you? At this mention, Hinata's eyes widened with joy, clapping her hands together and completely forgetting about her own lunch for a moment. I added a bit of pepper to the meat, she said, smiling brightly at Sasuke. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I wasn't sure if you liked Naruto-kun. Naruto, who had hoped to go unnoticed, flinched in the process of trying to steal a rice ball from Hinata's boxed lunch. Never one to be stopped simply by getting caught, however, he quickly snatched it up and started wolfing it down. Sorry, Hinata, he apologized between mouthfuls. This new jutsu is burning me up like crazy. What jutsu are you working on? Hinata asked as she nibbled on her own rice ball. Naruto and Sasuke shared a look, contemplating, then Naruto reached into his kunai pouch and withdrew the scroll containing the details about the jutsu, giving it to his teammate. Hinata grabbed it, opened it, and her eyes widened upon seeing what the jutsu would do if performed. This is intense, right? Naruto spoke with a grin, snatching Hinata's last rice ball. The sync is off, though. We'll have to work on that for a bit, but if we can perform this thing. Damn. You would be unstoppable, Hinata confirmed, nodding. How did you think of this? I had a dream, and I thought it sounded cool, Naruto explained simply, which made both Sasuke and Hinata sweat drop. So, what's this I've heard about our darling Hinata going on a date with one Aburame Shino? Sasuke's eyebrows show up as he gave Hinata a curious look, watching as the Hyuga air was steadily turning red, ducking her head so that she didn't have to look at them. Oh. I hear he never even saw the blow coming from the embarrassed Hyuga. Neither did Sasuke. An hour later, both Tsunade and Jiraiya blinked as Naruto stood in the Hokage's office, sporting a black eye and a busted lip. He was looking embarrassed as hell, and Jiraiya couldn't help but ask. What the hell happened to you, brat? Naruto cleared his throat. I fell down some stairs. Neither believed him, but it was clear that Naruto didn't want to elaborate further. Tsunade decided to get to the point of this meeting. In any case, Jiraiya has requested to take you on another training trip, this time to Myobokuzen. I have approved. You will go to the Toads and learn Senjutsu from them. Naruto blinked. Senjutsu? Really? He asked, an excited grin appearing on his face. When Jiraiya nodded, he threw his hands up with glee. Yes. I've been waiting for this. His cheering was interrupted by a knock on the door. Sasuke and Hinata reporting, came Sasuke's voice from the other side. When Tsunade called for them to enter, the door opened to reveal Naruto's 2 teammates. Sasuke, like Naruto, was also sporting injuries, only his black eye was on the other side, and he had a bruise on the tip of his chin. What the hell? Tsunade asked, sharing a glance with Jiraiya. What happened, Sasuke? I fell down some stairs. Sasuke muttered, and the two Sannin noticed how Hinata was glancing down at the floor in embarrassment. Both of you. On the same day? Tsunade asked, looking from Sasuke to Naruto. Said blonde coughed into his fist, not having counted on Sasuke giving the same excuse. It was a narrow staircase. Sasuke, always on his level, elaborated, we bumped into each other and fell at the same time. His body broke my fall, though. His elbow hit my chin. I smacked my eye on his forehead. The impact broke my rib. I think a big dude showed up and punched me, too. Tsunade and Jiraiya shared a look again. With each excuse the two gave, Hinata's head had lowered more and more. It was clear what had happened. She had severely bruised their pride, no doubt with a surprise attack. Though Tsunade was incredibly curious as to what had caused the sweet and kind girl to attack them. Judging by her red face, it was something embarrassing. In any case, while Naruto is off on his training trip, Kakashi has requested to take the two of you on one as well, Tsunade told them, making them all straighten up and give her their full attention. I have authorized Team 7 to be taken off the Niju Shoutai for a total of 45 days, during which time Naruto will be training with the Toads, and Sasuke and Hinata will be training with Kakashi. You leave in 5 days. 5 days, Sasuke repeated, glancing at Naruto. I guess that means we have to cram as much practice as we can into the time slot. Preferably without falling down more stairs. Hinata's head ducked down once more, staring down at the floor and poking her fingers together. Naruto was standing with his arms crossed at Training Grounds 10, his arms crossed. In front of him stood the Junin Ebisu and his students Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon. Naruto had even gone out of his way to formally ask him to bring them here, so Ebisu figured that it had to be something important. What are you here for, Naruto-ni-chan? Konohamaru asked, a grin appearing on his face as different scenarios popped up in his head. Are you going to spar with us? Another teamwork exercise. Not at all, Saru, Naruto said, grinning as well. With Ebisu-sensei's permission, I would like to teach all three of you a very personal ninjutsu, since you're all my precious little brats. I will be going on another training trip soon, so now is as good a time as ever. So, Ebisu-sensei. Go ahead, Naruto-kun, Ebisu said, pushing up his sunglasses with a skeptical look on his face. That look was wiped off his face, however, when Naruto held out his hand, showing a round, wilding spinning ball of chakra materializing over his palm. That's. Look closely, kids, Naruto said, grinning at the three gaping students. He took a moment to let them observe the technique for a moment, then slammed it into a nearby tree, blowing away more than half of the tree trunk, making the three genin gape in amazement. This is called the Rasengan, a precious rank ninjutsu invented by my dad. I'm going to teach it to you three. Don't be surprised if you can't learn it in a day. It's a tedious process, and you need ample amounts of both chakra and control in order to use it. Amazing, Ni-chan. Konohamaru said, a gleam in his eye that showed he was more than ready to learn the move, while Ebisu cleared his throat. Naruto-kun, these children are only genin. Is it really safe to teach them such a high-rank ninjutsu? I trust these kids to use it responsibly, Naruto replied. After all, they're my precious subordinates who would never go against my orders, right? Naruto looked to the three genin, who immediately recognized the dangerous look in his eyes, and they snapped to attention immediately. Right. Well then, let's get started. Naruto took out a scroll from his kunai pouch and unsealed a bag full of balloons filled with water. He picked one up and held it up in front of his kids. Before he did anything, he looked to Ebisu. They've been keeping up with their chakra control, right? All three can walk on water with no trouble at all. Ebisu announced with pride. I've made sure to drill the importance of chakra control into their heads from day one. Nice, Ebisu-sensei. Naruto said, flashing the elite teacher a thumbs up. Now, watch closely, my little brats, because this is something truly cool. The trio watched in fascination as the balloon started to wiggle. Then, bumps appeared all over it as the water inside seemed to rage violently, before the balloon exploded. The first step, kids, is rotation. Make sure to pop the balloon, and you'll be ready for the next step. Naruto announced, gesturing for the bag of water balloons. Like I said, don't be discouraged if you don't succeed on the first try. It can be difficult to grasp. That's what I'd expect from my rival. Konohamaru exclaimed with an excited grin on his face, grabbing a balloon. You're making it look so easy. But I'll surpass you. As Naruto gave them his parting words of encouragement and walked away, he found Ebisu following him. He stopped and looked at the teacher, who smiled fondly as he looked back at the three children, who were all hard at work trying to pop their balloons. They really do look up to you, Naruto-kun, Ebisu said with a soft chuckle. I will always be their teacher, to be sure, but you will always be their precious big brother. Well, those brats have a special place in my heart, Naruto said, crossing his arms again, a pleasant smile on his face. I'm grateful you took them in. I know you have a reputation as a simple go-to teacher, but I also know you're a very capable Junin. I feel I can trust you to keep them safe. Kakashi-sensei said so it must be true. Kakashi-san said. Ebisu's eyes were obviously wide behind his shades as he gave Naruto a startled look. Said blonde grinned and gave him a thumbs up. So, I'm leaving them in your care, Ebisu-sensei. If any of them manage to pop the balloon, have him or her instruct the other. Once they all got it, give them this. He reached into his pouch and fished out another scroll, handing it over to Ebisu. Tell them that the first step was rotation. The second step is power. Unseal this and have them pop the balls. Not just puncture them. They need to explode. Ebisu took the scroll, though he was understandably confused. Not a surprise, really. Learning how to perform the Rasengan felt very much like a kid's game, after all. Still, he nodded. Good luck with your training, Naruto-kun. Thank you. I'll see you later, Ebisu-sensei. With that, Naruto disappeared with a blur. Myobokuzen truly was a beautiful place. The entire mountain was littered with toad statues and waterfalls. There was a smell in the air that reminded Naruto slightly of some kind of sweet he couldn't quite remember. It wasn't a bad smell, to be sure. And toads were heard from all around him, their own unique kind of song that really only a toad summoner could appreciate for its beauty. Standing next to him, Jiraiya grinned at the odd look on Naruto's face. He patted his godson on the shoulder. Naruto, I want you to meet Fukasaku-sama. Naruto looked, but didn't see anyone, not until he looked down at the ground to see a small toad sitting there, and it looked very strange with bushy eyebrows and a beard on a toad, he had to admit. The toad was standing smiling over a scroll that had summoning seals scrawled on it. Welcome ta, Myobokuzen, Naruto-chan, the old toad greeted, nodding his head to the blonde. Jiraiya-chan has told us a lot about you. We've been wantin' ta, Micha for a long time. It's an honor to be here, Naruto said, bowing in greeting, something that made Jiraiya's eyes widen in surprise. What the hell, brat? Why aren't you that respectful to me? The look Naruto gave him was all the answer that was needed. It wasn't helped by the fact that Fukasaku was also giving him that look. Well, Naruto-chan, let's go meet Ma, then we'll start trainin', Fukasaku said once he looked away from Jiraiya to focus on the Senju heir. Jiraiya-chan says you have a lot of potential fair senjutsu trainin'. Apparently, I'm a natural, Naruto said, before jutting his thumb over his shoulder to point at Jiraiya. But then again, you have to take anything that old fart says with a grain of salt. Jiraiya bristled, but Fukasaki gave a bark of laughter. A funny kid, Naruto-chan. Ma's gonna love you, that's fair sure. So, come on then. Bunta-chan has been wantin' ta, see ya as well. Boss is here. Naruto barked excitedly, a grin appearing on his face. Awesome. Don't forget about me. Naruto whipped around, seeing a toad standing taller than him, if only by a few inches, yet there was no mistaking that color or voice, making him grin ever wider. Gamakichi. Both Jiraiya and Fukasaku were surprised when Naruto bolted forward, hugging the large toad happily. You've gotten so big since I last saw you. I need to summon you more often. If the hug wasn't surprising enough, Naruto actually lifted the young toad into the air and spun him around, like a sailor reuniting with his girlfriend after years at sea. See, calm down, Naruto. Making me feel embarrassed here. Gamakichi barked, huffing. Sides, we don't wanna keep Pops or old lady Shima waitin'. There'll be hell to pay if we do. Oh, sorry. Naruto muttered, setting the toad down, but still grinning. But look at you. You'll be your old man's size in a jiffy. You toads sure grow quickly. Then, Pa, Jiraiya said, looking to Fukasaku, I'm leaving Naruto in your care. Right, we'll make sure he learns, Fukasaku said, glancing at Naruto, who was chatting with Gamakichi. Apparently, he told a very good joke, because the larger toad gave a guffaw. He really does remind you of Minato-chan, doesn't he? That he does, Jiraiya said with a fond smile. Suddenly, the ground shook, and it was no surprise why, because a massive toad had just made his appearance, wearing a blue vest with a tanto stuffed into his belt, a large pipe stuck in his mouth. Naruto. The toad barked, making said blonde flinch. Where are your manners, you little brat? You finally show up at my Obokuzen, and you decide to greet my son before greeting me. And you call yourself my underling. Boss. Naruto greeted. Though the sudden appearance had startled him, he was still happy to meet his friend. It hadn't been thought possible, but his grin widened as he waved. It's been a long time. We gotta have that drink, don't we? Damn straight we do. Gamabunta was cut off by Fukasaku, who waved his hand to grab their attention. Sorry to interrupt, Bunta-chan, but I have to introduce Naruto-chan to Ma before he does anything else, or she'll tan our hides. It was amazing to Naruto to see the great Gamabunta flinch. Alright. I'll give y'all a ride over. Jiraiya, get the hell out of my sight. Jiraiya himself flinched at the glare the great toad gave him. Seriously, ask the guy to help him peep once, and suddenly the boss toad starts getting all sniffy. Well, I see Naruto is in good hands, Jiraiya said, forcing a smile back onto his face and putting his hands in a ram seal. Later. With that, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Meanwhile, some distance away from Konoha, Kakashi was standing across from Sasuke and Hinata in a forest clearing. He was looking lazy as usual, but his visible eye was sharp. Now then, this isn't exactly a training trip, but... He sighed to himself as he put away his book. From today on, we will fight like our lives depend on it. One-on-one fights and team battles both. Let's get started. I hope you enjoyed it, and that you will leave a review and a like at the door. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.